So you think you can beat me by outlawing my thoughts with your rogue politicians and the judges you bought? So you think you can mold me like I'm made out of clay? Oh, you want me to answer? Just got this to say. Take a look into this warrior's eyes. Tell me what you see. Take a look into this warrior's eyes. Oh, that still beats me.
I'm Paul Fromm. I'm the Midnight Man on Stormfront Radio. I'm on every night for 1 hour with news and commentary of interest to our people. Every night, Eastern Time, midnight, on Stormfront Radio, and that's at stormfront.org. I invite you to catch me. Hang on to your purse, ladies. Hang on to your wallet, gentlemen. They're about to be picked. Komagata Maru. Ever heard of it? If you haven't, you probably will. If you look in the catechisms of the politically correct, it was a dark moment in Canadian history. It was one of our proudest moments. Because those were the days that we had a Dominion government that put Canada and Canadians first. We had a Prime Minister, Sir Robert Borden, who knew what to do with illegals. When a shipload called the Komagata Maru of roughly 350 illegals from India sailed into Vancouver Harbor and presumed to do the I'm a refugee thing the way they do today, he consulted with labor leaders, he consulted with churchmen, he consulted with ordinary citizens, he consulted with a really great man, a representative of his people, a long-time Conservative Member of Parliament, H.H. Stevens. And after a 2-month standoff in July of 1914, he told the Japanese captain of the Komagata Maru to take the shipload of illegals out of Canadian waters. And in those days, the one-armed boat in the Canadian Navy, the little cruiser called the Rainbow, dogged the Komagata Maru out into international waters and told them if they came back, the Rainbow would put the Komagata Maru to the bottom of the Straits of Juan. Those were the days that we had a Dominion government that put Canada and Canadians first. We were a small population spread over this vast Dominion. But we had a government of men in those days that really believed in Canada and Canadians, and that believed that their first duty was not to the Third World or to refugees or to other people, but their first duty was to Canada and Canadians. Well, I mentioned you better hang on to your wallets and purses because they're about to be picked with the complete collaboration of almost the entire political establishment. You know, if you read the politically correct textbooks, the Komagata Maru was a dark moment when we turned back this boatload of refugees. They were illegals. A local Sikh leader in Vancouver had chartered this boat, had sold passages, probably at a profit. This was a money-making scam to 300 and some odd people, most of them Sikhs from the Punjab in India. They come on. He had hired a Japanese carrier, which is hence the name Komagata Maru. The Komagata Maru was a Japanese registered ship. They came to Vancouver, and they were deemed, after a 2-month standoff in which they the illegals on the boat often threw objects and at officers attempting to board the ship, fought with government authorities. I don't mean disputed with them. I meant physically fought with them. There was gunplay at various times. It was, in other words, the same sort of insolent, arrogant invasion that we face today, of people coming in chanting slogans like "No person is illegal," "There are no boundaries," etc., etc. It was the same sort of attitude, but in those days we had a government that stood up to them and in the end told them to get lost or else. Well, time goes by, and we have politicians for whom the term sucky would be too nice. We've got NDPers like Member of Parliament Penny Pretty. Now, Penny Pretty, as far as I can tell from her face, is Anglo-Saxon or Scots or something like that. But I saw her not so long ago in a chalwar kameez. That's the kind of tunicky and baggy pantaloons type of thing that Sikh women wear. I cute Penny. You look a real doll there, honey. And well, she's promising that if the NDP has anything to do about it, we're going to give the Sikhs an apology and probably compensation for the Komagata Maru. And Liberals are into this too, and the Conservatives, well, they're kind of skating around on this. There's the Conservative Minister of Multiculturalism, Jason Kenney, appears to have made promises. Now, there's an official report issued recently that also someone skated on the issue. It sounds as though there might be an apology, but what the Sikhs are hoping for is compensation big time. You see, it cost the community, allegedly, something like $35,000 in the summer of 1914 to hire or to charter the Komagata Maru. They raised some of the money, some apparently, I think, but was never paid. They asked the government at the time, because the government deported or sent the Komagata Maru away with its passengers, they asked the government at the time to compensate them. The government, I think quite wisely, said no. Why compensate people who tried to scam the country? Well, by the calculations of accountants hired by the Sikhs, the $35,000 from the summer of 1914 has now ballooned to $143,360,000. So $143 million. That is what they're claiming. So they want a groveling apology, and they want, or at least some factions want, $143 million of your money. For what? Well, in my opinion, they deserve nothing. In fact, what they do deserve is a good spanking for continuing to promote this rotten cause. Those people tried to invade our country. A strong government of the day said, get lost or else. Now they want to come back and make us feel guilty. Well, here's one Canadian who doesn't feel guilty one little bit. What would any self-respecting government of any country do to people who arrogantly sashayed in and demanded status? Well, I'll tell you what most governments would do. They would apply a well-placed boot to your backside, if you were lucky. In other places, you'd probably be killed. Well, we were a decent, civilized country, and we applied a modest boot to their backsides. We have nothing to apologize for. We have nothing to be ashamed of, and for heaven's sakes, we have nothing to give them compensation for. The story gets even more interesting, though. There was an amazing man, and if the CBC could ever get off, or the Canadian Film Board could ever get off making docudramas about worthless communists like Norman Bethune, they might do something about a man named William Hopkinson. He was an amazing linguist. He was a spy. He infiltrated the radical Sikhs, and he provided the information that allowed the Dominion government to figure out what the scam was and to boot them out. He was murdered by a radical Sikh in the summer of 1914. This man's name was Mua Singh. He was hanged the next January of 1915. His portrait, that is Mua Singh's portrait, hangs in many of the Sikh temples in Vancouver. He's a terrorist. The man who really ought to be honored with a postage stamp and an honored place in Canadian textbooks is William Hopkinson. I'm Paul Fromm. I'm the Midnight Man. You know, if you'd like to read more about that, send me an email, and I'll tell you how to get a copy of this booklet, The Komagata Maru Incident, A Canadian Immigration Battle Revisited, by my friend, the late Robert Jarvis. I'd be glad to give you information. I'm Paul at paulfromm.com. I'm the Midnight Man on Stormfront Radio. Catch me every night, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, or 12 p.m. rather, Eastern Time, at stormfront.org.